I, in the past, have gotten to work with a rodeo photographer who likes to send out cards once in a while in the mail as encouragement. I've gotten a few over the years. I know other people that have gotten them. And she sometimes takes some flack for it because it seems like to some, it's silly to send a card to some guy in the mail that is just a random note with a picture on the card or whatever. And, um, I'm sure that there's some guys that get something like that and maybe they don't know what to do with it and it feels awkward. But I'm a firm believer that is far more encouraging than it is something that makes somebody feel uncomfortable. And so I encourage her to keep doing it and just trust that there is value in doing that. And I would like to have time to do that with more people individually rather than relying on Messenger and different apps or texting to touch base with somebody to see how things are going with them when they've gone through something or they've been injured out. And that's one of the things where people ask, what do you do all week as a full-time missionary? People see cowboy church and that's the visible thing at a rodeo or a bull riding. But to actually go through the rest of the week, a lot of time can be devoted to just spending one-on-one time, making contact with people. Used to be 2,000 minutes or more on a phone call per month, talking to these guys. And now it's so much text based. But I'm Scott Hilgendorff with Cowboys at the Cross, and this is the short go. We might get around to that. So I want us to consider how simple it is to encourage and how much that can have value. There are several people that support this ministry financially. It's a full-time ministry, so it requires fundraising each year for people to generously give, and that way they participate in the ministry through us and through the work that I get to do as a full-time missionary. And that is what I am as a full-time missionary. And my mission field obviously is the rodeo industry. And a lot of people don't really understand that. And you get that sort of what do you do all week because Cowboy Church itself is such a visible thing, whereas the rest of the week they don't see the conversations. And this week in particular has been a difficult one. It's been a heavy week. And there's been several people going through some hard stuff. And while they're the main focus. They're the reason I'm in ministry full time is because part time I didn't have time for a week like this where multiple people had things they're going through, from illnesses to some Christian issues in terms within their family of how to have a conversation about the need for forgiveness in a family issue, to somebody that someone cares about that their faith just seems to be going completely off the rails in a different direction, and they're reaching out to me to see if there's some way that I could intervene and be of help. And that becomes part of the what do you do all week, and fitting cards in and mailing things like that out. I do a couple times a year with the financial supporters because taking the time to write something by hand and put it in the mail, it's so much more personal than sending an email saying, hey, thank you for your support, because I can't do this without these people. And I want them to know how valuable they are, that they're just as much a part of this ministry as I am. And I want them to feel a part of the work that's going on. So I want us to look then at Matthew 25, verse 40 is just the verse we'll focus on. And the king will answer them, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me. And what we're getting in this story from Jesus is an illustration of people that were receiving help that needed it. If they didn't have clothes, they were given clothes. If they didn't have food, they were given food. And the king explaining that by doing it to them, you did it to me. And what Jesus was getting across there is that by serving others, by ministering, reaching out to others, we're showing God's love in the actions that we're carrying out. We're showing God's love, but God is getting to experience that through us. He is the one showing the love. He is doing that through us, through that rodeo photographer's cards. That's all she's trying to do, is care for and minister to someone. She's trying to give them that food that they need, the clothing that they need. She's just giving them an encouragement. And I'm going to, at the end of this, I'll show a letter of sorts that I got in the mail today, which was a wonderful encouragement from a Sunday school class where they were talking about missionaries, and I'm one of the missionaries that their church supports. And so these little kids were learning about that, and they sent a little letter and a coloring page that they sent to me, just offering thanks to the work that I get to do as a missionary. But again, it's God through me that is doing all of this work. And that's what that verse is trying to tell us, is that by doing those things, we're showing God's love, and God is working through us to minister to others. And I think that's, we're not all necessarily called to be full-time missionaries. So my work gets a little bit more involved in what I get to do day to day, week to week, whereas the person sending out the cards is just doing that once in a while in her spare time. But we all can do things like that. Whether we're full-time missionaries or we've got busy schedules, we can always find time to reach out. It is okay to send a text message. It is okay to use Messenger and just say, hey, what's going on? These are important ways that we can reach out and minister to others, that we can show God's love, and God can show his love through us when we take those moments to do those gestures. So never think that it's silly to reach out. Getting a letter in the mail today, it's Thursday and I'm tired. I'm already tired. I carry with me sometimes the weight of the burden God has given me for the rodeo crowd. It's hard for these guys to know how much I can love and care for them, and sometimes even lose sleep over them. I wrote about this in a mission update that I send out to the financial supporters this week, that for the first time in years, doing Cowboy Church on Saturday night at a bull riding, and my mouth went dry, and I jokingly blamed it on a fan. The one bullfighter brought a battery-powered fan over to let this fat guy not sweat so much during Cowboy Church. And I blamed the fan on my mouth going dry, but it was nerves because I could feel my hands shaking a little bit. And the reason they were shaking is because we were doing one of the most serious sets of messages I've done on the gospel, on the plan for salvation. It's probably one of the both difficult and yet gentlest ways that I've taught the gospel, yet still not shying away from the good old fire and brimstone side of the reality of the consequences of our sin being eternity in hell, or the consequences of our saving faith in Jesus being a perfect eternity in heaven. And I just felt the weight. I just felt the absolute weight of that message, and just wanting these guys to have a true saving faith in Jesus. And I found myself getting so nervous as to whether I was teaching this well. And it's, again, needs to be God through me that's doing it. And my prayer with those guys as we prayed together was that as much as I trip over his word, that his truth would be heard and understood. And then the rest of this week has been just these difficult things that I mentioned. I mean, sometimes you guys go through some pretty hard stuff, and you matter more than anything to why I'm in ministry full time. But at the same time, people don't understand how pastors and ministry leaders can also take that burden on. We can feel some of what you're going through. We can't know everything you're experiencing. But when you're dealing with multiple people, you start to feel the weight of it, and it gets very heavy. So sometimes a card from a rodeo photographer in the mail just comes at just the right time, or a letter from a group of little kids at a Sunday school class that learned a little bit about the mission work you're doing. The amount of lifting up that can do, that I got to, instead of being the one trying to put God's love out there and letting God's love be felt through me, I got to feel God's love through this little Sunday school class. And so that is the basis of this short go, and just the encouragement that I want to give the rest of you, that you can do for the least of these, and you can be used by God to show others that he loves them, and you can do that without having to bear that weight that I talked about. It doesn't mean it has to feel that weighty. You can just simply do this and know that God will use any gesture you make to reach out to someone. God will magnify that encouragement in ways that you can't imagine when that person really needs that encouragement. It's God through you. Let him use you. Love you guys. We'll talk to you again.